This might be the craziest story in golf history. Jack Nicklaus, the Golden Bear, has just won a $50 million lawsuit because somebody said he was joining LIV Golf.
Jack Nicklaus finally breaks his silence on LIV Golf, and the golf world can't stop talking. His unexpected statement has stunned fans, shaken old alliances, and raised serious questions about the future of the sport. But there's far more behind this shocking revelation, and today, I'll uncover the truth that changes everything. Golden legacy. Jack Nicklaus just did something no one saw coming. He broke his silence. And when the Golden Bear roars, the golf world listens. After years of whispers, lawsuits, and corporate backstabbing, Nicklaus finally spoke out following his massive $50 million courtroom win against his former business partners, the very people who tried to paint him as a senile sellout to the Saudi-backed LIV Golf. On October 21, 2025, a Florida jury sided with Nicklaus, ending a saga that had threatened to rewrite his legacy with lies. Suddenly, the man who defined golf's golden era wasn't just a legend, he was a headline again.
So this morning, I have woken up to some very surprising news from 8-time major champion Sir Jack Nicklaus. Now, this is some juicy goss that I didn't even know.
For context, this is Jack Nicklaus we're talking about, the man whose 18 major championships still sit untouched atop the leaderboard of golf immortality. His entire career, from his 1962 US Open triumph over Arnold Palmer to his emotional Masters win in 1986, has been synonymous with precision, discipline, and class. The Golden Bear didn't just win, he defined how winning should look. So when his own company, Nicklaus Companies, which he had sold majority control of back in 2007, accused him of flirting with LIV Golf for hundreds of millions, it wasn't just an insult, it was sacrilege. The allegations were wild, that Nicklaus had secretly entertained a $750 million offer from LIV Golf to become its face, mirroring Greg Norman's role as commissioner. The subtext? That at age 82, the Golden Bear had lost his moral compass, and maybe even his mental sharpness. The company's leaks painted him as a once great hero gone rogue, chasing Saudi money. But Nicklaus fought back, hard. He sued them for defamation, arguing that not only were the claims false, but they were malicious, designed to ruin the very reputation that built their empire. And the jury agreed. The Florida court awarded him a jaw-dropping $50 million, not just as compensation, but as vindication. The verdict came as golf itself stood divided between the tradition of the PGA Tour and the glittering chaos of LIV Golf. The timing couldn't have been more poetic. As the sport teetered between legacy and disruption, the greatest symbol of golf's past had just been proven right, and righteous. Nicklaus's victory does more than restore his image. It's a symbolic reminder that not even the world's richest disruptors can rewrite history's moral compass. It also shines a harsh light on the corporate vultures circling legends when their careers wind down. The Golden Bear may have retired from competition decades ago, but his roar in that courtroom echoed louder than any drive he ever hit at Augusta. And yet, the real question remains. What did LIV Golf want from Jack Nicklaus? And why were they so desperate to have his name? Stick around, because the courtroom drama that followed would expose golf's ugliest power struggle in decades. Like and subscribe. This story just got expensive. Courtroom clash. It all came to a boil in Palm Beach County. A legal showdown that turned the serene gentleman's game into a tabloid war zone. On October 21, 2025, a jury hit Nicklaus Companies with one of the largest defamation verdicts in sports history, $50 million. The courtroom fell silent as the verdict was read, but the shockwaves rippled across the fairways of Augusta, Pebble Beach, and every LIV golf clubhouse from London to Jeddah.
We're new at noon. A jury in Florida awarded Jack Nicklaus $50 million in his defamation lawsuit against Nicklaus Companies. This is according to a report by ESPN.
This wasn't just a business dispute. It was an identity crisis for golf's greatest champion. Back in 2007, Nicklaus sold his company for $145 million, stepping away from the commercial chaos to focus on course design and philanthropy. But in 2022, after his non-compete clause expired, he tried to re-enter the business world independently, only for his former partners, led by billionaire Howard Milstein, to strike first. They sued him in New York, accusing him of breaching contracts and secretly negotiating with LIV Golf. Then, like clockwork, their version of events leaked to the press, with the sensational claim that Nicklaus was entertaining a $750 million Saudi offer. To make it worse, they questioned his mental fitness. The insinuation was brutal, that the aging icon didn't even understand the deals he was making. That's not just defamation, that's reputation arson. And for a man whose career was built on precision and clarity, it was the ultimate insult. Nicklaus's counterpunch came in the form of a Florida lawsuit, where the truth finally came out. Court documents revealed that yes, LIV Golf did approach him in 2021, but at the company's request, not his. And when offered $100 million to become LIV's figurehead, he declined on principle, reportedly saying, "If the PGA Tour isn't in favor of it, I want nothing to do with it." That line became his shield. It echoed through the courtroom like a quote from a sports movie, the kind that ends in a standing ovation. The jury didn't just see a contract dispute, they saw betrayal. They saw a legend defending not just his name, but the soul of golf itself. By the time the verdict dropped, Nicklaus had achieved something almost mythic. He beat the corporate machine that tried to erase him. His lawyer summed it up best outside the courthouse. They told the world that Jack was selling out the PGA Tour for the Saudis. It wasn't true, and now the world knows it. But as one war ends, another begins, because this case didn't just vindicate Nicklaus. It cracked open golf's biggest secret: how LIV Golf's money, ambition, and moral compromises have divided the sport to its very core. And Jack's name was only the beginning. Evolving views. Jack Nicklaus has never been the type to yell into microphones or chase controversy. But when he finally did talk about LIV Golf, his words hit like a well-aimed iron shot straight down the fairway. For years, the Golden Bear had been cast as either a quiet traditionalist or an out-of-touch relic. But his evolving stance on LIV Golf tells a far more nuanced story, one that reveals both the man's wisdom and the sport's turmoil. Back in 2022, when the world was still trying to make sense of LIV Golf's flashy arrival, Nicklaus broke his silence in the most measured way possible. During an interview at the Alley Challenge, he said, "I don't really have a problem with it. I think the PGA Tour will probably just be stronger because of it." It wasn't exactly a headline grabber, but it was revealing, the greatest champion in golf acknowledging that competition might actually strengthen the system. It was classic Nicklaus, diplomatic, careful, but honest. Then came the chaos. By 2023, LIV Golf had gone from curiosity to controversy. Players like Phil Mickelson, Dustin Johnson, and Bryson DeChambeau had defected, and the PGA Tour was hemorrhaging credibility. Nicklaus, standing firm on tradition, fired a subtle but cutting shot. "I don't even consider those guys part of the game anymore," he said during a PGA event that year. "This is a PGA Tour event." It wasn't venom, it was a statement of allegiance. He wasn't angry, he was disappointed, like a father watching his kids leave the family business for fast cash. But even then, Nicklaus wasn't completely dismissive. By 2024, his tone softened again. "I hope they get this thing together," he said. "The LIV thing has been a powerful addition to the game." He understood what many didn't, that golf's evolution couldn't be stopped, only guided. For him, the problem wasn't money or innovation, it was loyalty, heritage, and the moral compass of a sport built on integrity. Then came the lawsuit, the moment his nuanced stance was twisted into a tabloid weapon. The company that bore his name claimed he'd been negotiating with LIV for a $750 million payday. The irony? His measured comments, intended to keep peace, were reinterpreted as proof of betrayal. Media outlets framed it as hypocrisy. Greg Norman even took a public jab, calling him two-faced. But Nicklaus never bit back. He simply clarified, on record, that yes, LIV had approached him, but he'd turned them down because of his loyalty to the PGA Tour. That one line, "I turned it down," became a quiet battle cry for golf's traditionalists. His so-called silence wasn't apathy. It was restraint. It was the calm of a man who'd already seen empires rise and fall. By the time the 2025 verdict came, his words carried prophetic weight. The golf world finally realized what Nicklaus had understood all along. LIV Golf might shake the tree, but the roots of the PGA run too deep to be uprooted. His evolution wasn't hypocrisy, It was foresight. The man who once changed golf's future was still shaping it, even from the sidelines. And yet, beneath the diplomacy and courtroom victories lies one pivotal question. What exactly did LIV Golf offer the Golden Bear, and why did he say no? The answer, it turns out, reveals everything about golf's moral war. Saudi offer. It started with a phone call, and a number so absurd it could have paid for its own golf course. In 2021, Jack Nicklaus was approached by representatives of LIV Golf, the breakaway league funded by Saudi Arabia's public investment fund. The pitch? They wanted the Golden Bear himself, not just as a consultant, not as a ceremonial figurehead, but as the face of LIV Golf. And for that, they were willing to pay him over $100 million.
A very long time, because I had never heard of this thing called LIV Golf or Live Golf, LIV Golf, which is like another league competing with the PGA in Saudi Arabia or out of Saudi Arabia or funded by the Saudis. And it's kind of an amazing story. Jack Nicklaus just had his trial in Florida and was awarded by the jury $50 million for defamation because Nicklaus alleged.
That's right, 9 digits. For an 82-year-old legend who hadn't played competitively in decades. The idea was simple. If Jack Nicklaus, the symbol of golf's golden age, lent his name to LIV, it would grant instant legitimacy to a league mired in controversy and accusations of sports washing. But Nicklaus didn't bite. His answer was polite but firm. If the PGA Tour was not in favor of it, I wanted nothing to do with it. That one sentence summed up 60 years of integrity. He wasn't interested in the money, the power, or the glitz, only the legacy. And that's where the trouble began. Because that meeting, arranged by his own company, the very one he had sold majority control of, would become the basis for one of the most toxic lawsuits in golf's history. Somewhere along the line, that $100 million offer mutated into an outrageous rumor that LIV had dangled $750 million to lure Nicklaus away from his moral code. Suddenly, headlines everywhere screamed that the Golden Bear had been caught entertaining Saudi billions. Nicklaus companies leaked the story, twisting truth into scandal. They implied that not only had he considered the offer, but that his judgment was impaired by age. The betrayal was staggering. His name, the most respected brand in golf, was being used to boost their own agenda and discredit him in the process. In court, the truth finally surfaced. The offer was real, yes, but the exaggeration and insinuations were pure fiction. Nicklaus testified under oath that he declined LIV's advances without hesitation. Documents even showed that the company itself had facilitated the meeting, not Nicklaus. The jury's unanimous verdict confirmed what fans already believed. The Golden Bear hadn't sold out. He'd been sold out. That revelation cut deeper than any business betrayal. It revealed the desperation of LIV Golf's early years, scrambling for credibility, trying to buy heritage with oil money and big checks. And Nicklaus's refusal wasn't just personal pride, it was symbolic defiance. When golf's soul was up for auction, its greatest guardian said no. The irony? That refusal made him the perfect target for defamation, because his principles made other people nervous. His silence wasn't compliance, it was conviction. The Saudis wanted his crown, his company wanted his image, and the tabloids wanted his downfall. What they got instead was a legend reminding everyone that some things in golf, and in life, aren't for sale. But as LIV's billions continue to reshape golf's landscape, one question lingers. Can even Jack Nicklaus's legacy withstand the storm of money and manipulation sweeping through the game he built? Golf unity. By 2024, golf was no longer the calm, polite sport of quiet claps and plaid pants. It was a billion-dollar battlefield. The PGA Tour and LIV Golf were locked in an arms race of money and morality, while fans argued online like it was the Super Bowl of ethics. Somewhere in that chaos stood Jack Nicklaus, not swinging a club, but still shaping the game with every word. His victory in court had given him a platform again, and he used it to call for something the sport hadn't heard in years: unity. Nicklaus, the architect of golf's golden image, saw both sides of the fight. He understood why LIV existed. It was offering something the PGA had long taken for granted: opportunity and guaranteed money. He wasn't blind to the appeal. In one 2024 interview, he said, "The LIV thing has been a powerful addition, probably impacted a lot more than we thought." He wasn't endorsing it, He was acknowledging the earthquake it had caused. But then came the pivot, the kind only Nicklaus could deliver. "I hope they get this thing together, in the best interest of the game." It was a line dripping in old-school grace and subtle leadership. Because while LIV players were cashing 8-figure checks and the PGA Tour was frantically upping its prize purses to compete, Nicklaus saw the collateral damage, the erosion of golf's core identity. "You can't buy legacy," he'd tell close friends, echoing a sentiment that seemed to mock both his corporate accusers and the Saudi funders trying to reinvent the sport. His 2025 comments after the verdict struck an even deeper chord. Nicklaus said he wasn't against LIV players personally. He simply believed golf needed one unified body, not two feuding empires. He recalled his early days when the sport's legends, Palmer, Hogan, Player, all played under one banner, and rivalries were settled on fairways, not in courtrooms or press conferences. "You don't grow the game by splitting it," he said, with the gravity of a man who had literally grown it once before. Meanwhile, the legal chaos surrounding him became a strange mirror to golf's larger struggle. Just as the PGA and LIV were trying, and failing, to merge their worlds, Nicklaus had fought, and won, his own unification battle, reclaiming his name, his voice, and his truth. His personal vindication became symbolic of what many fans wanted for the sport itself: reconciliation without selling out. As discussions between LIV and PGA leaders kept stalling, Nicklaus's victory carried moral weight. It reminded players and executives alike that legacy, not money, endures. His name had been used to sow division, yet his words became the blueprint for peace. Still, in true golf fashion, his call for unity came with a warning. "Golf's always been about honor," he said. "Once you lose that, no contract can buy it back." And with that, the Golden Bear reminded a fractured sport that sometimes the biggest swing comes from taking a stand. Final vindication. The image was poetic. Jack Nicklaus, 85 years old, standing tall as the Florida sun reflected off the courthouse glass. The man who once defined greatness with a golf club had just done it again, this time with truth as his driver. When the $50 million verdict came down, it wasn't just a legal win, it was an emotional thunderclap. The Golden Bear had been vindicated. The numbers told one story: $50 million, the largest defamation verdict in golf's history. But the symbolism told another. This was payback for the whispers, the headlines, the insinuations that age had dulled his mind or that greed had twisted his principles. It was justice, not just for Nicklaus, but for every aging icon who's ever been told their legacy is for sale.
But not as interesting as Jack Nicklaus winning a $50 million defamation lawsuit against Nicklaus companies. I hadn't heard about this, and I realize now that I've been out of golf for a very long time because
his lawyer's post-trial words went viral. "We're happy that Jack's been vindicated." But in truth, it wasn't just happiness, it was restoration. Nicklaus's name, once dragged through the mud by his own former company, was now shining again. Reporters called it a defining moment for integrity in sports, while golf fans flooded social media with tributes. One viral post simply read, "The bear roared again." Nicklaus, ever composed, didn't gloat. At the post-verdict press conference, he smiled and said, "I've always tried to do things the right way. I guess that still matters." That humility, that quiet moral compass, hit harder than any courtroom soundbite. It was the same tone that once carried him through playoff pressure at Augusta, now cutting through corporate deceit. But his vindication also set off ripple effects. Industry insiders said the ruling could reshape how athletes' names and likenesses are used after retirement. It's no longer enough for corporations to own a brand. They must honor the person behind it. "This case will be cited for years," one sports attorney said. Nicklaus didn't just defend his reputation, he redefined athlete rights. Beyond the legal world, the verdict reignited golf's moral debate. If even Jack Nicklaus could be falsely tied to LIV Golf, what did that say about the sport's current moral compass? As Rory McIlroy and other players began softening their tone toward LIV, Nicklaus's example stood apart, proof that principles could survive the payday era. And perhaps the most poetic twist? Nicklaus's so-called silence had always been mistaken for passivity. In truth, he was simply waiting for the right moment, the right fight, and the right swing. When he finally took it, He didn't just clear his name, he reminded everyone what integrity looks like under pressure. As he left the courthouse, reporters shouted questions, but Nicklaus only smiled and said, "Golf's in good hands, if it remembers what it stands for." Then he turned, unhurried, as if walking back down the 18th fairway one last time. The legend had spoken. The Golden Bear was never silenced. He was simply saving his roar for the moment it mattered most. And that's the tale of how the Golden Bear roared one last time, not for trophies, but for truth. Jack Nicklaus didn't just win $50 million, he won back golf's soul. As the sport teeters between legacy and luxury, remember, honor still matters. Subscribe, like, and stay tuned. The next golf storm is already brewing.